junior developer happy hour, just so people are aware. It started in the springtime. Sam and I decided to start it to give a space for people who are looking to get into dev jobs for the first time. We're trying to just be able to answer as many questions as possible, and we're trying to bring on a bunch of different people with different perspectives to give their advice as well. And so that is what led us to create this space, this meetup. So we do have a Slido, and I know it's been posted. So the Slido is going to be the best place to ask questions, and then you can upvote the questions, and that way we're making sure that we're always getting to the questions that the most people are interested in hearing first. And then if you end up having follow-up questions directly related to something that got brought up in like an answer, then you can ask those in the Zoom chat. We'll try to keep an eye out. We have been known to miss a couple of questions before, especially if things are moving really quickly in that part of the chat. And also resources that we end up talking about, we'll try to get posted, or if anyone watching wants to post to help us out, that's always appreciated. And I see Yoel has posted okay, that's the Slido, so thank you very much. I know earlier in the chat, he also posted his awesome FAQ section on his GitHub repo. So that can help you if you have extra questions about the meetup in general, or want to go look for some questions that get asked frequently.
Yeah. It's also the link for the FAQ is pinned to our Slack too, at the top of the general channel.
So then if you're able or want to stay until the very end, that's when we will stop recording, and then we can invite people off mute, and it's always great for people to get to introduce themselves a little bit, and we can meet each other a little bit better. I think that's about it. Sam, you want to add anything?
You want to introduce yourself real quick, just the brief intro?
Okay, like 1 minute intro, less than a minute. Yeah. So I went to Dev Bootcamp back in 2017. I think when I joined back after my technical difficulties, I think I maybe heard that Sam was talking about how we've never actually met in person. It's just through our DBC. That's not really my intro though. After I graduated from Dev Bootcamp, I started working at a company in Chicago called Trunk Club. We already had been acquired by Nordstrom by then, but yeah, now I'm like officially a Nordstrom employee because of that. And I'm like a full stack engineer, have been working a lot with front end stuff like React.
Yeah, and then I'm Sam. I'm on sabbatical right now, but I've been an engineer for about 7 years professionally now. I also went to Dev Bootcamp. I also got a computer science degree, but I got that a long time ago. Failed to get into the industry that first time. I gave up too quickly. And later on, I went to Dev Bootcamp and then was able to break into the industry. And worked at a few different companies, and I was most recently at Lyft. Last Friday was my last day, not yesterday, the week before. So that's a quick intro. I'm gonna record a longer intro and post it on YouTube. I posted in the Slack. We used to do longer intros before, but it takes up too much time. And now that we've done it so many times, like you see the intro every time on all the YouTube videos. So we're trying to shorten it, but we still want to tell you who we are if you're new here. So I'm gonna record a video. Maybe Braidy can too, and she got some time. I got more time because I'm not working full time anymore.
Yeah, you're on Sam-batical. That's awesome.
I'm on Sam-batical, and I also started doing mock front end interviews with people from our community, and just office hours, like just hanging out on Zoom and doing like where you can just come and ask me anything. I'll start posting those on Meetup. I was doing them sporadically, just whenever, and just posting the link on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
A lot of
people. You ever want to
just
invite me to that? I'm super down to do that too. That sounds like fun, just to hang out.
Yeah, well, just pay attention on the meetup page. I'll start posting them there now. And then, yeah, if you want to join me for office hours, I can post that on Meetup. I'll talk to you offline about
Cool.
that. And if anybody else wants to do something, you just DM us and we can try and see. So now that I'm not working full time, we can expand this Meetup to be more things than just every Saturday doing the AMA with our special guests. So we plan to, the Meetup should be filling up now with more events than just Saturday. So yeah, that's me and
Awesome.
plans for what's coming with this Meetup. And let's get to our special guest, Lee, who's I know from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, just introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Lee. I originally from the Big Island of Hawaii, but I moved to California in like 2007 with my wife Shannon, and I got a marketing degree from UMass Boston way back in the before time in 2005. I pretty much did sort of marketing like things until maybe like 2014 or 15. I became interested in my job doing marketing. I was hiring someone to build a website and talking to all kinds of devs like who were so busy. They're like, oh, I can't do your job for 6 months. And it sounded like a very fun thing to do. And it sounded like a very like, oh, these people are very busy. They have a lot of work to do. It seems fun. I just got interested in the tech. And so I just, decided to quit that job blind. I went to General Assembly here in Los Angeles. In Santa Monica, I did the web development immersive bootcamp, it was called at the time, which at the time was a Rails bootcamp, and Angular was kind of the hotness at that time. So we did a little bit of Angular. But yeah, I did it so blind, I didn't know the difference between JavaScript and HTML or CSS or anything. I like had no clue. I was just like showing up, like trying to learn basically. And then after that, I kind of went through a few jobs. I like helped teach at General Assembly, a few cohorts. I helped teach a front end class. I got a job. My first like full-time job, I guess, was at a marketing agency. And that was like super intense, turn and burn, doing websites for different companies. And yeah, I only made it like 5 or 6 months in that. I just could tell it wasn't like, definitely being like a dev or engineer wasn't like the focus of the company. It was basically just bringing in as many people you could do, making as many websites as you could. So I thought I wanted to kind of work on something a little more like focused. So I basically quit and just freelance for a while. And then I got referred to a job at a company called Victorious, which at the time was trying to do sort of like influencer apps, like branded apps for like YouTube stars and stuff. Then we went through a company pivot. We turned into a fitness company where we're basically trying to do like a Peloton style live stream fitness classes. And then we got acquired by Headspace. And then I've been at Headspace for 2 years now. I came on as a front-end engineer, and we built out a few community features like live stream meditations and stuff like that. And then for the last year, I've been on the health team, primarily doing API work in Java. And we're making a health product that we're doing clinical trials right now. We finished like 1.5 clinical trials, and we're trying to like, get some health data for meditation and stuff. That pretty much takes me to now. I'm also the web chapter lead, so I do web and API, and basically just in a lot of meetings all the time. But that's where I'm at right now. That's what I'm up to.
Wait, Headspace does live streaming meditation now?
We used to. So I mean, when we came on board, like we were coming on as like our company knows how to do live streaming, and that's why they acquired our company, because we were doing live stream fitness classes basically from a studio. And so we built this whole like infrastructure of live streaming, and it was all this, it's pretty cool. Like, you schedule these things, it brings up all the live streaming infrastructure, and eventually having plans to do like live video and all that stuff. But they just never got around to it. Like the company never focused on it. So it's still a feature, but it's not like used to its full potential really. And now our company is, all the people who came in with me are all like spread around the company in different places. But yeah, so that's been my journey basically in a 5-minute thing.
Awesome.
It's been a great journey. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess we can go ahead and hop into the questions. There's quite a few already.
Cool.
So this first one is asking for any tips or recommendations or things you wish you'd known about transitioning into tech at 32 when you're applying for your first job. This person is 31. Yeah.
So while I was at General Assembly, we had like a panel of people come in to talk to us. There were software engineers from different companies around LA. And one person had also come into it as like a, kind of a little bit later. And I think what she said was basically, your previous experience is an asset, so use it as an asset. It's not like something, you're not starting from scratch. Having all of that like work experience or whatever, even if it's not in a directly transferable, is still super valuable. I think like you can show that, you can manage projects or whatever the like relatable skills may be. That is definitely true. So I think even just that mindset of thinking of my time before tech or before software engineering is an asset, not a liability. And if you have like a solid work experience, solid recommendations from people you've worked with, I think that goes a long way versus maybe someone who has never had like a full-time job before or think of it as an asset, not a liability. But it is a little bit, can be daunting, like my sort of like peers at my job are like easily 10 years younger than me, so more than that, maybe like 13 years younger than me. So I think checking your ego in that way is also a good idea. Like being able to, accept like criticism from people younger than you is helpful, and maybe like not trying to keep like that beginner's mind always of just trying not to like look down on people just because they're younger than you. I think has served me very well.
Yeah, very good. Most jobs, I don't know of many jobs where you're not building communication skills. So even if it's just communication that you can say that you've improved over your experience.
Yeah. And so like my wife and I both did career changes past 30. So like she was in the film and TV industry as a camera crew. Like she worked on the crew. She like, wrangled cable. She like went on the camera truck and had all this gear and stuff. It's a very manual sort of labor job. And she so I continued to work my previous job, and then she took 4 or 5, 6 months to change careers. She eventually got a job at a clean tech incubator here in LA. And then when she was sort of established, that's when I quit my job and did mine. So yeah, it's always finding those relatable skills. Yeah, like for her, it was, I know how to manage a bunch of stuff. I'm super organized. It's just making someone else believe that, you have those skills and that they will be transferable to your new job is very good.
Wait, did your wife go to a boot camp too?
No, so she's considering it now actually. So we'll see. But so like she's actually done a bit of another, I guess, career change. She kind of stepped into tech now as a solutions consultant, I guess, for like an IT company. So they do like Windows, like all that kind of Windows stuff and like Azure and all that. So she's learning about all that every day, and she has stand up and all that stuff now. I know she would be a phenomenal engineer for sure. She's like a very organized like mind, and the way she can work with spreadsheets and stuff would for sure translate to data very well. But we'll see. It's possible.
All right. Does my mic sound like it's working now? Okay.
That sounds
Yep,
good.
yep.
Great. Just wanted to check. So this next question here is, when entering the tech industry, was it hard to figure out which company you wanted to work for, or did you just apply broadly?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. I think how selective you can be probably depends on how desirable you are to hire, I guess is a nice way to say it. Um, I was definitely one of the like worst people in my boot camp starting out. Like it was super easy to tell just doing our projects and everything. Um, I guess by the end I had made a lot of progress for sure, but I was definitely not someone who had a lot of job offers coming in. So I kind of just had to keep keep grinding until I could, like get that first job. And I just really want to underscore how like just how big of a deal it is when you get your first job. I think that it kind of just rolls from there. Um, and yeah, like even I had dinner with Sam like when I was first getting my first job offer. I was visiting San Francisco at the time, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have people like asking you all the time now." And that first job wasn't really the good job for me, but it was my second job. Basically, rolled me into where I am now. Like, I didn't even have to interview for my job. Oh, I did have to interview at Headspace, but it wasn't like we were coming in cold. I just like company got acquired, and then I had a different job at a different company. So I was not able to be very selective. I was applying to like all kinds of jobs, just looking for that first, like that toe in the door to just then like show what you can do. Um, yeah, I guess that's kind of why I started at a marketing agency. Like it was very intense and not really like what I was doing was not super valued at the company. It was just like a means to get more business in other ways. Um, but it was good experience. It was all good. And actually, yeah, my first like I would say good job at Victorious was through a referral from somebody I went to boot camp with. So I think like those connections also are very, very, very valuable. Just because it was somebody who knew my work ethic, knew I was like, somebody that she would want to work with. So you get that invitation to apply, and that gets you the call, which gets you the interview. And then as long as you can just keep going till you do good and get that first job, then you're rolling.
Yep, that bootcamp network is the strongest. So make sure even after you graduate, you keep participating in your boot camps like network. Like I still participate in the bootcamps Facebook group, and that bootcamp doesn't even exist anymore. But the group still exists, and it's extremely powerful. My Dev Bootcamp network is insane.
Wow.
Because I went to the bootcamp 7 years ago, so now
Yeah.
people are all over the place. So it just gets stronger as time goes on because everybody gets better and better and they move up in the industry.
That's something, even I definitely need to get better at is like making new connections, keeping old connections like going.
Yeah.
Because I still connect with a few people from my boot camp, but not many. I actually don't know how many actually ended up being devs anyway. I felt like we didn't get the greatest sort of support at General Assembly at the time that I went. I don't know what it's like now, but yeah, it is hard managing those connections in life.
Yeah. I wouldn't stop. I've never stopped. Even when I had jobs, I just keep joining new communities and meeting people. It's only going to help you in the long run, and it's just fun.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me at least is just, initiating that, like having the confidence that someone else is gonna want to like even, I don't know, like talk to you sounds weird, but like what would be interested in like making a connection with you for whatever reason.
But if you just like join like the Slack or Discord or Facebook group, like if people still have Facebook groups like
Yeah.
Dev Bootcamp, like you just have conversations by commenting on each other's things. That's how I met Braidy. um, I don't even remember what you posted, Brady. Do you remember what you posted?
Yeah, it was some like I knew that I wanted to help junior developers because I just had this moment um, when I had found out that my company was laying off devs and um, knowing that a bunch of other companies were laying off devs, I was like, I cannot imagine like somehow being in the situation today where maybe I had just graduated and now a bunch of companies are not hiring.
Yeah, I guess I'd also would definitely like to say that I'm super cognizant that the landscape now is extremely different than when I was graduating boot camp. Like at the time that I went to GA, it was literally the only thing in Los Angeles to go to. That's why I chose to go there because there was no other options. Now there's like so many. I don't even know how many there are, but I know it just from my experience reading LinkedIn and all that stuff, it seems like, there's, it's a very competitive like landscape out there to get your first job. It seems like to me at least. So I know everything I'm saying is definitely like when I was going through it, it was different in some way. Seems like it's tough out there right now, but keep going.
Cool. So we can move on, I think. We can go on to this question wondering how did the experience of getting your first job out of boot camp compare to getting your second job?
Yeah. My first job was like basically there was no tech, like my tech knowledge, and there was no sort of like software engineering required. So it was more like, um, hey, I have some comparable skills. I was a marketer for a while, so I think that helped me get in the door at a marketing agency as a developer. Um, so it's basically like more about conversational skills in the interview, writing. I had to answer like a sort of essay or like just like a written interview first, and I think having little like cheeky witty responses there probably helped me get the next level of the interview. um, but it basically was not your standard sort of like tech interview at all. There was no like code things, there was no whiteboarding or no like really technical questions at all. It was just like, hey, like how WordPress works and you can do some CSS. That's good enough for us. Come on in and start making stuff. Then yeah, my second job interview was your standard like phone screen, do some like coding on like a code pad, and then come in for the whiteboarding interview, which was whatever 1 hour for each question times 3. Um, and yeah, I was definitely terrified, but it's fine. I think the key in doing stuff like that is realizing that the people on the other side definitely want you to do well, because interviewing people from their perspective takes time. They don't want to do it all the time. If you're nice, you can prove that you can help like work with them to figure out what they're asking. That goes a long way too. I definitely didn't like crush every question totally, but I think you're really just looking to make like personal connections and show that you're somebody they could work with is really, I think, the primary objective in my mind. But yeah, so the interviews were very different, and I almost sort of like self-sabotage myself in that interview where I was like knew that I should prepare, but then I was also sort of like, I'm probably not going to get this job, so I'm not going to really prepare too much for it. But thankfully, I kind of caught myself falling into the self trap. So I didn't prepare like so much where I think it was a hindrance, but I definitely like spent some time doing some questions and ended up doing good enough to get that job. And yeah, I mean that took me to where I am now, basically. So um, interviewing is definitely it's so weird because it seems like it's so almost unrelated to doing the job of software engineering, like in my mind at least in terms of like knowing that you have to write something perfectly the first time, and especially whiteboarding out something like it's so random and it doesn't make sense. I know there's a lot of different companies that try different things. I'm positive there's a much more effective way to know if somebody can be a good software engineer other than like whiteboarding interviews. But I guess until we solve that, just trying to focus on like the communication and the relationship, I think works well. I kind of bombed my interview for Headspace too. So I was like, yeah, it was really weird because it was my mom's birthday, and it was she had passed away that year, and it was the only time I could do that interview on that day because I was leaving for a trip like the next day, and I think it affected me a little more than I was expecting going in, and so I was kind of a nervous wreck going in there, and I sort of like didn't understand exactly what the interviewer was asking. So I sort of like presented a solution for a problem that they weren't asking, and then realized it later, and I was like, uh-oh. But I sort of like wrote out a better solution and then emailed it to him after. I don't know if he ever read it or whatever, but I think things like that can also help.
It can help. I bombed the Uber phone technical before, and I made I after the I knew I bombed it. I redid it, and I made a whole web app out of it, and then I emailed it to the recruiter, and then they gave me a second try after I did that.
Yeah.
And I actually got to go on site, but I ended up bombing the on site.
Yeah. Well, you got one step. Yeah. So I think it shows that you care enough to like, that you were thinking about it and you're like, oh, I realized it popped into my head. Like I was literally in the shower, like, oh, I realized now it is asking me to write out like a solution on a JavaScript REPL. I mean, and like something.
It doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I will just go ahead and post the Slido link one more time for everybody, just to remind that that's the best place to ask questions to get answered. And then that kind of leads into what you were asking or what you were just talking about. Are data structures and algorithms still the norm for hiring junior developers?
I don't really know. This is something I bring up at Headspace whenever we're hiring. It seems like we only hire seniors, and I'm always asking, like, why don't we hire like juniors, even like mid-level people? Why do we always only have to hire senior people? So I'm not really sure. I would assume that, yeah, I guess seniors don't have to be trained, but I think everybody does. I think, I don't know. It just seems weird to me if you have a company that only has seniors. Like that sort of, I don't know. It says to me that they're not trying to like invest in people and sort of like bring them up through the company. I know that's the mindset as well. We need somebody right now to be like effective right now. But yeah, so I don't necessarily know what it's like for hiring juniors specifically, but I would say in my experience, yes, data structures and algorithms are important. It's just, again, it seems like it's definitely helpful to know those things like in the job, but I don't think it's something that you need to like, bam, have the textbook answer right away, right? Like it's mostly like searching Stack Overflow and figuring out how to do things. Like I usually don't know how to do most things that I'm asked to do. So yeah, I guess unfortunately I would say yes, it's important, but don't necessarily know why, but you kind of have to play the game, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think it's still important?
I think it's definitely important to know the fundamentals. I think I bring this up all the time. Definitely know string manipulation, arrays, anything more than that. If you're, depending what position you're going for, especially front end, you should probably know trees too. I mean, the DOM's a tree, but like I don't think it's super important to like know how to do dynamic programming and complicated like graph stuff unless you're gonna work at like some FANG companies. Like I've never had to build anything with any of that kind of knowledge. Like I'm not good at it at all. So yeah, I usually recommend like at least get the fundamentals, string manipulation, arrays. I mean, you got to know stuff like binary search. That's fundamental. That will come up in interviews all the time. They might not ask you straight up to do binary search. They usually hide it within a problem, but like the way to solve it is like to do like the way to solve it involves like doing a binary search. Like that's pretty common, I think, in an interview.
Learn binary search, learn hash maps, and then down we're good.
Yeah, that'll get you a long way. But yeah.
And if you're unsure, just say the word hash map, and then they'll be like, "Oh, good."
Yeah. Did anybody see the tweet this morning about the person who solved FizzBuzz by like just like doing like a Google search? Like they I'll try and find the tweet. It's hilarious. This person like solved FizzBuzz by like doing a Google search, copying the Stack Overflow answer, and like executing it in JavaScript. And that's how they solved FizzBuzz.
There you go.
I gotta find it. But yeah. Brady, you got anything to add?
Sorry, it's a lot louder in my house today than it normally is. But I think what you were saying matches my experience completely. I wouldn't consider like the interview that I went through for my job, I wouldn't really say like, yeah, it was algorithms and data structures, but it was fundamentals. Like I had to manipulate strings and arrays and stuff. So I guess I've typically told people to work on building their own projects, and my assumption is that they're going to be incorporating that sort of stuff. But if you go and do some like easy problems on LeetCode, I feel like that probably is also getting you prepared for the majority of interviews out there. But yeah, I guess, I mean, there's going to be a mix of the type of interviews out there for junior developer jobs anyway. So I can't say 100% one way or the other.
Well, shout out something Sam told me about. Execute program has a really good native JS array course that I went through, and it was really good. I at least like learning like at a pretty deep level all the native array methods. It's very worthwhile.
Yeah, the other one about like I forget what the course is with all the async stuff about promises and generators and stuff. That one's good too.
I should do that. Yeah, we use
pretty important to understand that stuff for front-end developer.
Redux Saga, like all those kind of like generators, and every time I don't do it for a while, when I come back, it's a kind of like always takes me a little while to get back in the like mindset of generators.
Cool. I missed all of that, but are we ready for the next question?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. What is your favorite part about working at Headspace?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the real answer is that in COVID times, to help us deal, we get every other Friday off. So that's probably my favorite thing right now. Just having that time, like I use that time as errands time to like go to the grocery store, like do whatever kind of running around that I need to do, so that on the weekend I can pretty much just like be with my daughter and my wife. And that's been very, very helpful. Besides that, I think it's just, I don't know, it is like, definitely they've attracted like a sort of like very kind people that work there. And yeah, I think generally we get, like at the IC level, at least for me, I get the freedom to kind of like work how I want and to generally like propose whatever improvements we need to make. And, there's some hoops we need to jump through, but it's not too bad. I think right now we're in that in between being a small company and a bigger company. So sort of trying to find our way with process and all that stuff. But yeah, I guess just having other Friday off is awesome. And just having the freedom to sort of like decide how we want to build things is also fun.
Wait, you said you get every Friday off or
Every other Friday? Yeah. And then
that's super awesome.
Yeah, it's dope. And then on the other Fridays, it's like no meetings, because as awesome as Headspace is to work for, we have a meeting problem, especially in COVID. It's like, just Zoom meetings all day, sometimes in like a lot of meetings. Yeah, so
same with Lyft. But
yeah.
If you guys ever start hiring in Tulsa, let me know. Maybe I'll come out of sabbatical.
Yeah. No, if
only having to work 4 days a week sounds nice.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah, which were the other hubs did you mention?
For Headspace currently, it's California, Washington State, Texas, Florida, Georgia, New York, North Carolina, and Virginia and DC.
Awesome. Okay, what skills and habits are crucial for front-end developers to get their first tech job?
I think, this isn't maybe not just your first job, but I think the front end landscape changes so fast that I think you just have to keep on top. Like, it's so hard to keep on top of what's going on in front end. I feel like I'm a dinosaur every time I don't pay attention for a week. So yeah, I guess it's just sort of like keeping aware of all the changes coming, like, oh, React's coming out with a new major version. What's the difference? Like, what sort of stuff are they adding? Like, where is it moving? Like, is Redux on its way in or in its way out? Like what, just all that kind of stuff. I think people will ask you about that just to see, like, are you keeping track of what's going on in general? And yeah, I even ask people for senior positions about that. And sometimes I'm surprised at how, like, at this point, it's like super old school if you're writing classes generally in React, right? And it's like, oh, that's kind of weird. He like went that way instead of writing hooks or whatever. So I guess it's just not getting comfortable with that and just like relentlessly staying on top of everything. And it's so much, like, I feel like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I don't know anything about how the web works or how websites work. And then, you kind of have to remember like how far you come from not really knowing anything.
Yeah, that's why it's pretty important for people to be on Twitter, I think, especially for front end. Like, that's why you see a lot of in dev Twitter, it's like dominated by front end people, I think, because they need to be on there to like keep up with where everything is going. But definitely you got to have the basic skills: HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Like, you got to get the fundamentals down, and you got to be able to use APIs, because front end developers work with APIs a lot. A bonus if you know how to build APIs, like Lee is doing now. So Lee's transitioned more into just building the APIs, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's funny though, because it's like, I was able to sort of transition a bit to where, and now I really feel torn because I'm not thinking about web stuff all day. And so when I come back into the web thing, I'm like, oh man, I feel like I don't understand anything anymore. But it's funny because, like, as I transition to API, like, we're using Java, Spring Boot, and it's like, we're on Java 8, which it's like 10 years old now. It's like, like this tech is so like, well, it's just sort of dinosaur, works super well. Nothing changes too much. You just know how to do stuff. It's very opinionated. And if you're trying to learn web stuff, it's just like so wild. It just so changes so fast.
That's why people usually who gravitate to front end are usually like super curious people that are always like trying to find out like how things work.
Yeah,
I
sort of really took to learning CSS like when we in my boot camp, and I think that actually served me pretty well, like getting, because CSS in, I don't know, my experience seems to be something like programmers don't like because it like doesn't, I guess it's not like mathematical so much, and you kind of have to like, you know, understand more how the browser works, or, you know, like doing layouts in CSS can be like a total mind bender. But that's another thing I would say is if you can learn something that other people don't like doing, then that's also another way to like to get in. My first paid job ever out of boot camp was making a really old like bakery website, like mobile, like, you know, basically adding media queries all over to make it work on mobile. And I think I got the feeling just nobody in that dev shop wanted to do it really. So that was like a good way to get my first like little freelance.
That's a good point. Because then when you come on the team too, everybody loves you because you do all the stuff.
Yeah, and that was
don't want to do.
It was actually a good segue, I guess, into at my first job, or one of my first jobs at Victorious. I came on as a front end dev, and, you know, I started like just asking questions, and I would be like asking the guys, I expect this API to be up in staging. It's not up there. What's going on? And then it's kind of like, well, the deployment process was like a bit of a hassle and people didn't like doing it. So then be like, you know, I volunteered to do that. How does Jenkins work? Let's like learn how, like, you know, how do we deploy this stuff? And, you know, it's a bit painstaking, but I just took good notes and like volunteered to do it. And then boom, now you're the guy who's deploying the APIs because nobody else wants to do it. You get a little bit of experience doing CI, whatever. Get to learn like a little bit more of the tech stack, and then sort of like expand from there. And in doing that, got to know some of the ops guys, talk to more API engineers, and just kind of like expand your like, just like the amount of people you're talking to.
Yeah.
Did you have any, do you know of any good resources you can recommend for learning how the browser, like how CSS reacts with the browser and like how the browser works? Or did you just kind of play around with CSS and figure stuff out?
I just would go to websites I like to read and like mess around in the dev tools. I think you can learn like pretty much all the front end just doing that. Writing JS functions to like move things around and doing stupid stuff like that. Go to ESPN and make it say like, you know, stupid, inappropriate things for headlines is a fun way to learn.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got their start in web development from like MySpace days, because MySpace you could like hack the page and make it look customized. So people started. I know a lot of devs who like started. That's how they started.
Yeah, I think
like
I just realized this the other day was that maybe the first like HTML I ever wrote was pasting stuff to change the backgrounds and stuff in my MySpace page.
No, that's a lot of people, I think.
That's pretty legit, actually.
I also saw. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Brady.
Oh, I saw a follow-up question a couple minutes ago, hearing about how you are doing the more API-focused work. Would you still consider that front end? Do you consider that back end? Is it kind of full stack? I actually don't know how I would answer that.
I was going to say the same question. We were saying it at the same time.
So yeah, I guess I would consider building APIs doing back end. But it definitely helps. I guess it helps me. I feel like the more I learn about APIs, the more I feel like I can be a more effective web dev. And then I also feel like I can build APIs better knowing how we would use them, you know? So I think it helps you both ways.
And it depends what company you're at too. Sometimes you're going to be expected to do both, especially if you're at a smaller like startup.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, for a while, I feel like Headspace was hiring like full stack devs, and me being like someone who is pretty into web, I feel like in some people's minds, you can just hire an API person and then be like, oh, well, the web's not that big a deal. But it's like, no, there's just so many things you need to learn. It's so hard. You can't just like throw anybody in and say like, here, go write this React component necessarily. It's a lot of stuff working together, very complicated. I half the time feel like I don't know how it works.
Yeah. I mean, it just keeps getting more complicated. That's why
Yeah.
I think back in the days, it was much simpler when it was just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but people's expectations keep going up because look at the apps now, like like Spotify in the browser and all that kind of stuff. People just expect that kind of apps now. So now the game just keeps like, it just keeps
progressive web apps,
increasing.
Everything, yeah.
What the user expects keeps going up. So that's why it keeps getting more complicated.
Yeah, but then like, yeah, that's why it's been a little bit fun to work on the API side, because it's like we're using like Java and Spring Boot, and it's like I kind of got to choose. Actually, they asked me, okay, you want to build like Node, like TypeScript APIs, or you want to use Java? And I was like, I think they assumed I would say Node because I was coming from the front end, and it was just like, it's just JavaScript, whatever. But I went with Java because I felt like with Spring Boot and all that, because it's so like, there's so much convention. I didn't have to like know how it worked. Like I just kind of like followed the convention, you know, like there's an established way to do things. And for me, that like opinionated way of doing it was a huge plus, because I'm coming in cold, I don't want to have to like think of my own way to do all this stuff. I just want to know, how do you build like CRUD, right? At the end of the day. And yeah, it's been working well for me so far.
Things are coming back that way in JavaScript though. Next.js is moving in that direction, and then Blitz.js is built on top of Next.js, and it's a opinionated framework. It says it's inspired by like Ruby on Rails.
Interesting.
I haven't tried it yet, but I just watched it.
I'm gonna write that down right now to check it out.
It's called Blitz.js. Cool. It even has built-in like authentication and authorization and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Here, this next question is, it says, where I come from, there's no boot camps that guide people to shift careers normally. I'm trying to learn on my own, learn backend. How can I get mentored to save some time? So like maybe how to find a mentor if you're looking for one.
That's a really good question. I don't know. I guess places like this might be a good, like if you could maybe not mentor, but other people with the same like maybe the same like level of experience but different knowledge might be good, like to build projects. I don't know. It's definitely good to have a mentor. I wouldn't say I ever really had one necessarily until I started working. I sort of just latch on to people who are willing to share, and then let them know that you appreciate their knowledge and try to help them however you can. Yeah, I guess I don't have a great answer for this one. How about you guys?
Yeah, I would say just join like communities and just participate in the community. It's pretty hard if like you're gonna like ask somebody to be your mentor unless you're like paying them, because it does take up a lot of time, and like developers are busy. Like sometimes they're working more than 40 hours a week at their job, and they got side projects going on, and just life in general, especially this year, is like is exhausting. So it'd be hard. It would be hard to like ask somebody to be your mentor?
Yeah, I would say even like kind of cold asking somebody for like 30 minutes of their time or something is, even that is a big ask. So
Yeah.
like, how do you ask somebody to be your mentor? I think, yeah,
It,
you need a way to develop that relationship somehow.
yeah, I think it just develops organically sometimes. Like, um, I've like just mentored people in this community, like not because they asked me, but like we just like chatted a lot, like in our Slack. They DM me like on like LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that, and I kind of just became their mentor. I guess we talked a lot, like, but they didn't ask me to be their mentor. We just chatted in DMs all the time. So I
I'm
think
also,
that kind of stuff happens organically when you're just part of a community. That's why joining these Slacks and Discords and being active on LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that, helps you, it just helps these things happen organically.
yeah, I'm seeing a couple of comments about people who have found mentors from posting like 100 days of code. People end up reaching out to them, it sounds like. And yeah, I remember last year about this time wishing that I could mentor people. I've since found a couple of people, so I don't really have bandwidth to just give out free time so much anymore. But if you're able to like post on LinkedIn and post on Twitter and any of those other, like if you're able to find other meetups and Slack communities, places like those, there are likely people who are interested in finding someone to help out. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And if you can afford it, you can offer to pay people if you're going to ask them to be your mentor. I've had somebody pay me to be their mentor before a long time ago.
cool. This one is again about Headspace. How would you describe the work culture at Headspace? Are there cool mental health oriented benefits at Headspace?
Um, yeah, I would say, well, you get free headspace for life, which is cool. Although I have definitely found that for me, I have a hard time like doing it now because it's like I can't help but connect it to work. Yeah, so shout out Waking Up app, Sam Harris, if anybody else into that. That's my jam personally now. But yeah, I think besides that, I think we're afforded a lot of flexibility for mental health. And like, if I need to do pretty much anything for any reason, it's always cool. We have like half-hour blocks, 2 half-hour blocks during the day, one at 10 to 10:30 and one at 3 to 3:30. That's like, it's like your personal meditation time or whatever. So like you can't book meetings over that time. It's like whatever you want to do. When we were in office, we used to take walks or whatever. Um, that's pretty nice too. And I always try to do something like I'll walk around my block or have coffee or whatever, do a 10-minute meditation in that time. And it's really, really helpful to break up the day that way. The culture, I would say, yeah, it's generally very, sometimes to a fault, everyone's very mindful and like not wanting to like step on people's toes and stuff. But generally it's thoughtful and kind and generally a nice place to work.
That's amazing. Headspace, like lifetime membership.
Yeah,
In a
no,
few
that's pretty
years,
cool.
like if you leave and then a few years later, it won't be work. It won't remind you of work probably at
Yeah,
that point.
I think like when we came in, they had just gone through some pretty heavy like changes like up top. Like there was a newish CTO, and so like when we first came in, I think it was a very contentious time, and like a lot of people who had been there a long time left. There was like a lot of turnover, and like people are leaving like scathing reviews of Headspace on Glassdoor and all that stuff, like some juicy ones. But I think it's like now we're at the point where people who originally left are coming back. I think, yeah, so I think, I think the culture has improved a lot, and I feel like it's a very, very good place. But we recently hired a woman from Intuit, Cece Morgan, to be she was like our chief operations officer, and then we just promoted her to CEO. So I guess Intuit is pretty well known for like personal employee growth and like executive growth and stuff. So she's put in a lot of really good, I think, processes that are helping drive the culture in a different way, like particularly with a focus on like quick experimentation, so you don't like waste a lot of time developing things that end up being duds with the users. And then sort of changing our review process so it's based around monthly check-ins instead of like year-end review stuff. So I don't know, that's cool. Seems to be working well.
Awesome. What do you think it was that impressed your first employer to call you for an interview and end up offering you a position? Do you think like portfolio, resume played into it? Earlier you were talking a little bit about prior experience potentially.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me it was, so my first job was at Hawk, which is a marketing agency here in LA. I think what got me through that first door was probably my experience with digital marketing in the past, and then mostly that I was trying to write like sort of smart-assy, witty, funny answers to some of the comments. Like one of them was, hey, I'm having a tough day at work. What would you like suggest that we do, or something? And I don't know, I wrote something about, hey, should we go like feed the fat squirrels on the promenade at Santa Monica some crackers, or like something like that. I don't know. I had like a few like somewhat funny answers, and I think that probably helped like cut through some of the other, cut me ahead of some of the other applicants to that job. So that's for that one. And then for my second job, definitely just having that warm introduction, having been boot camp and like working friends with Wendy, who referred me to that job. That's sort of everything, because it definitely won't get you the job, but it'll get you the call, or it'll get you moving towards that second like on-site or whatever. And a lot of times that's all you need, I would say.
Yeah, referrals help a lot. If you can get like a true referral where the person is gonna like vouch for you and not just give you like a link to like apply. A lot of times the companies have different levels of referrals. Like you can refer people that you've never worked with or you don't really know, like just post a link on social media. That's like one level. But the level where you almost guarantee to get an interview a lot of times is when somebody like vouches for you and they actually fill out your application for you. A lot of times that's how the referral process works. Like the person doesn't even apply. You put in all their information into the system and then you're marked as a referral. And that's what you get a big bonus for too, because you're putting your reputation on the line. So a lot of companies, you get a big bonus. At Lyft, it was like $5,000. I got one while I was there. Some companies like $10,000.
Yeah, I think at Victorious was 10,000. So I think the person, Wendy, who referred me, I think she got 10 grand, man.
Yeah, because that's cheaper than paying the recruiter. Some recruiters get like $20,000, $30,000 when they get somebody into the company. So it's just an incentive for the company to for the employees to like really vet people that they've already worked with. Especially those are the best referrals, I think.
Yeah,
because
I think
you already know what it's like working with the person.
Headspace was just hiring for 2 web positions, for 2 senior web positions, and I think both of them got hired as referrals from other people.
Yeah.
Here's the next question. What are some good questions to ask when an interviewer asks you, do you have any questions for me?
That is a great question. I think asking something like, what are your three favorite things about working here? What are your three least favorite things about working here? Or like, anything. Oh, key values is awesome, Sam. Yeah, go read key values and then they'll tell you what to do better. But I think anything where you're trying to cut through that sort of corporate BS answer, the kumbaya answer is really good. Anything to like lift the curtain a little bit to see what is it really like to work here, is in my view, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I would appreciate if people will ask me stuff like that too.
Yeah. Make sure you have questions though.
Yeah, for sure. Not be like,
you
nope.
you should be curious about the company, like something.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, just try to think of something that's not like just a super generic question.
Yeah. I went to a webinar yesterday and I heard a really good one where someone was trying to figure out how to, if you're going to join a new team, how can you understand quickly like what's valuable to the team, because sometimes it's hard to describe your own culture. And yes, she was talking about asking the team members, like, what do you celebrate on your team? Because sometimes, like, I've talked to some people where they would probably celebrate the fact that they haven't taken a vacation day all year.
Yeah, or like, yeah, we worked all weekend, stuff like that.
Yeah. So that was a good idea. And asking, like, maybe not so much at the junior level, but their idea was asking about, like, what are the top performers working on? Because sometimes it's like mentoring junior developers, and sometimes it's like other really, really technical stuff that could be something interesting. But yeah, Key Values has a ton of really great questions to figure out if it's going to be a good environment for you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, stuff like, yeah, if like what, like 60 days into this role, if you give me the job, like if you think I'm being successful, like what will I have done? Or like what are you hoping that I do that the previous person wasn't doing? Or what, I don't know, stuff like that, I think for me is really interesting.
Also, if it's like an apprenticeship role or something, it can be really telling to see how long, like if prior apprentices are still working there. That was one of the cool things I found out about my company when I was hiring, or when I was going through that process, that I think there were like 5 or 6 people who had gone through the apprenticeship program and then had continued working at the company years later. So
yeah, that's definitely a good sign. Sign that they're like investing in people, you know?
Okay. This next question is, what was your job search project work schedule post bootcamp? If you had a schedule, I guess.
I think I would, this was when like ClassPass was still a thing. I would like wake up and I would like apply to a lot of jobs, and then I'd like go paddleboard around the marina for an hour, then I'd come back and try to work a little bit on a personal project. Yeah, I don't think I had really a great schedule. I think I would get like sidetracked doing stuff, but yeah, I don't have a great schedule on that one. When I see like people, on LinkedIn saying like, hey, I got a job, I applied to like 500 jobs, it's like, it's, the perseverance is amazing, but like that's so hard to like keep doing that over and over.
Yeah, I think everybody just has different kind of schedules that work for them. Like it sounds like Lee didn't even make a schedule. So
yeah, I guess for me it's just, yes, really
It
important
depends
to
on,
like take breaks during the day and to not like
yeah.
try to like do as much as I could every day, just because I definitely would tend to get anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I had a set schedule either because I'm very unorthodox. I didn't even apply to jobs.
Yeah, it's also like, yeah, it's been, it's 6 years now, so I don't remember. I don't have a great memory anyway. I don't remember now.
Yeah, me too. I pretty
I,
much just hacked on stuff and went to meetups almost every day because I live in San Francisco, so there's tons of meetups. Did hackathons and all that kind of stuff. Volunteered.
I just remember constantly feeling like I should have been doing something like the other thing that I could, like the thing that I wasn't currently doing felt like the thing that I should be doing. Like if I
Yeah,
was networking.
definitely identify with that.
Lol. All right. Do you recommend picking up or learning some kind of CMS to help get the first dev job? Is it common for companies to use them? That's like content marketing software. Is that what that stands for? I should know this. We use
Content
one.
management usually, yeah. But I mean, when I was sort of starting out, WordPress was still really popular. So knowing that definitely helped me get some freelance jobs. And indeed, if all you were looking to do was like even just upgrading people's WordPress so that it's not a security flaw, you could be busy all day, every day, forever. Like, because it updates often, it often breaks, it's often very insecure. So yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. I don't know like what are the really popular ones now, but also like a lot of places will have their own that they build in-house to manage whatever like Headspace has like 4, right? Like we have one for users, we have one for content, we have, so I think once you get to work on a few, you definitely like will start to get some skills as far as like using UI libraries among different code bases or like, I don't know, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I don't know. It depends too, like what companies you want to work for. So I always suggest to people like you should make a list of companies you want to work for, or that way you can do research on what they use, and then try and get better at stuff, technologies they use.
And even if you don't end up working at those places, at least you've got some sort of like direction that you can work towards and will bring you in a direction of like a company that would be similar.
Yeah, because I've actually never worked at a company that like used like CMS stuff that I can think of. Maybe they did, I just never used it, and I don't know any CMS stuff myself.
Yeah,
so it depends what you want to do. Yeah,
my
there are probably a lot of WordPress jobs if you want to do that.
My team, we actually heavily do work with CMS, and I had zero experience with it. There was like obviously no correlation between me joining that team and that experience. But we are building it in a way so that our internal teams can update things on our website without needing to know how to build. But I mean, I have a WordPress website, but it's very different experience. So even if you find a company that has CMS, I don't know how much, like you could still be mismatching the skill set that you have worked on potentially. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think most likely the more valuable thing is just like getting more experience with different tech and fixing broken things and building things, probably. Because yeah, like putting your eggs in a single basket is probably, maybe a bad call.
Cool.
And this is really fun to you.
Unless it's really fun to you, yeah.
That's the best thing to focus on, whatever you have the most fun doing, in my opinion. because then you'll get really good at it because you really like doing it.
All right. Here's a next question. What are your tips on talking about coding test? Oh, on talking about a coding test you took before a video interview.
Like prepping for a
Yeah, I'm not
interview?
really sure. Let's see. What are your tips on talking about a coding test that you took before a video interview? I'm picturing this scenario where maybe someone was sent this code test and then as their interview, they have to talk about what they did on the test.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
If that is the case, I would say, leave one, try to write self-documenting code, like, break things up into smaller chunks, into smaller functions, name them exactly what they do, maybe leave comments for yourself so that it's just easy to being on the like person interviewing side. You definitely want to, I think what we're looking for is how you organize your thoughts, how you organize your code. Can you like walk someone through it? And just sort of like, see your thought process of how you can take a big problem and make it into small parts. So pretty much anything that's going to make it read clean and like, I think naming functions what they do is actually a huge bonus, or just like something that helps everyone know exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and practice. I would try to find somebody you can like go and explain the whole app to, and then get feedback from them. So that's probably the best way to prepare. Just you can even like come in our Slack and just ask if anybody, you could just walk them through this app you built and see if they have any feedback. You can also just ask on social media, just ask the world.
Yeah, you could do like, hey, someone want to have at Headspace, we have tech talks where you can present talks on anything. And even like some people who are going to present at conferences and stuff will do like trial runs just to make sure you get all the kinks out and know where you're clunky and all that.
I think you're muted, Brady.
Oh, hey, here we go. I have to do it once every meetup, right? Here I'm looking at this one that is it important for backend developer to learn stuff like JAMstack, serverless, and that is, am I reading this correctly? And that's stuff or staff?
Must be stuff.
I think stuff. Like yeah.
I don't know that it's, I guess like it's important if it's going to be something you're going to work with, but JAMstack's like Gatsby, right? Like JavaScript and markup.
I don't know what JAMstack is.
JavaScript APIs and markup.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's particularly that important if you're trying to be a backend developer, but I guess knowing about serverless and all that is good. But I don't know.
That's more of a front end developer skill set, I would say. And it might not even be important depending on where you work, because not everybody's using JAMstack. You could be using Ruby on Rails or a lot of different things. So
yeah, it's so hard now to know what to study, right? Like what out of the 1,000 things you could learn, like where do I put my like attention? And I guess you just, in my mind, you can either like go with what really interests you or go with what like seems valuable at the time.
That's why I always tell people to do what's fun. Somebody even mentioned about how like somebody got hired just because they like learning new things, even though they weren't the best person they interviewed. Companies do really like that.
I mean, that's
people
definitely
that can,
me.
people that
I've never been like the most technical person ever, but I am like a person you can talk to. I'm a person who will smile in meetings and like help you out. I'll take notes, you know, like all that kind of stuff. Like try to like just kind of be valuable, I guess, in general.
Yeah, I would like you on the team to take notes because I hate taking notes. So, yeah, but like companies like people, especially if you can communicate, weave that into your story about how you enjoy learning. Companies like people who like to learn because you're gonna have to learn every day when you're at that job. So. Yeah, and also we're at 1:30. How much time you got today, Lee? Just want to know how much.
Yeah, no, we're good for another few minutes, whatever.
Maybe a few more questions again, Brady, like usual, and then we can. Anybody who wants to stay and just hang out and introduce themselves and chat, we can turn off the video and do that. That's what we usually do. Yeah. Turn off the recording, not the video.
Ask yourself by yourself in your room.
All right, then. This question is, how many years of experience is considered senior at Headspace?
Yeah.
Or how else would you identify a senior developer, I guess?
Yeah. It's weird. I feel like in most industries, you're not considered senior with like 5 years experience or so. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like when our company got acquired by Headspace, I came in not as a senior. I came at like one level below a senior, but other peers that I came in with did get moved to senior first, like came in as senior. So I don't know. I guess it seems like maybe 5-6 years experience. Definitely more predicated on like what you know, what I guess more specifically like how can you work. It's mostly, it seems to me, about like communication and being able to make things happen across like different squads. Like, are you able to, you know, kind of work? It's kind of like a politic game a little bit, just like, can you talk to ops guys, figure out what needs to happen for this thing to get deployed, or like, you know, kind of like, can you like weave through the different paths to like shipping what you need to ship, I guess.
Yeah, you need to be able to take ownership of stuff usually and just make it happen. Before you're a senior, I don't think that's as expected as much. You just get tickets and you do that.
Yeah. So it's like, it's like the base IC level is like people can give you very like well-defined work and you can do it. And then it's like, you know, the next level is like, well, you can sort of oversee a feature end to end, like within your own squad. And then as you start like going to the next level, it's like you can sort of like oversee features through like across squads or like bigger initiatives, or maybe like things that you yourself are driving. Like, oh, we want to like deprecate this library and use a new one. I'm going to write a RFC, like a request for comments, and I'm going to write a tech spec around it. I'm going to present it to the company. I'm going to like, you know, kind of like have this be my thing. And then kind of just like, I guess, bigger and bigger impact that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different at every company. So.
Okay, this next one is, how much time a day did you spend becoming a developer and beginning your career? Where did you look for inspiration on projects, for your portfolio and brand?
Yeah, I was definitely like not someone who had like a portfolio really. I kind of like did the projects we did in bootcamp. I made a portfolio site, but I don't think it had anything to do with me like getting any jobs that I've gotten. So yeah, I guess I don't think it's really that important, but it is a cool way to like show that you're learning new stuff. Like if you build it in some new like framework, or you have some cool animation that shows that you understand animation or cool styling or whatever. I wouldn't put like a ton of time into it. Like in my opinion, is probably not going to get you a job, but I don't know.
It can help you get noticed though. I never made a portfolio either. I had a lot of projects in my GitHub because I did a lot of hackathons and just volunteered and went to Code for America hack nights and stuff. So I had a lot of stuff in my GitHub, but I never like put it together into a portfolio. But people knew I could build stuff because I always talked about all the things on social media about like the hackathon projects I made and stuff.
Plus,
like that.
It's all there for somebody to see, right? If they like just look
Yeah,
at
if they did. But that strategy worked for me because I wasn't code applying. So like I wasn't code applying and giving people links to my portfolio and stuff. Like all my software engineering jobs I ever got was through my network. So people just vouch for me because they saw me like doing hackathons and like some of the awesome things that I built at the hackathons and stuff like that because I talked about it on all the social medias. Back then it was mostly Facebook, but like I don't really use Facebook anymore. But yeah.
Should we do one last question?
Sounds good.
What are 2 key properties or assets every front-end web developer should have ready before they start looking for work? Or is there anything? Or is it like a skill?
Yeah, I don't know. I would just say like flexibility and curiosity, really. I feel like the state of front end and JavaScript development now is like you wouldn't even recognize it from 2 years ago or maybe even a year ago. So I think just always like not getting comfortable, I guess, is probably the best the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
Communication is super important.
And yeah, I don't think there's any prerequisites necessarily. Just keep learning, keep going, keep trying, keep applying, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said before, the basic fundamentals: HTML, CSS, JavaScript for front end, and being comfortable just using any APIs. Just be able to read the docs and get the data and make it look good and easy to use.
Read the docs is actually a huge, really good tip. And I saw an interview with Dan Abramov, and people were like, what's one thing you think you would tell people? And he's like, read the fucking docs.
RTFM.
Yeah, that's pretty much like will help you. And I actually myself, like just this year, have started doing it a lot more. Like instead of tinkering until I figure it out, I'll like go read the docs a lot more. And yeah, it short circuits a lot of like flailing. You'll figure it out anyway, but a lot of times it's right there for you to find. And in particular, I started using this app Dash. You guys use that? It's like
I remember when we were at Dev Bootcamp, like people were like shilling that.
Yeah, I mean it's basically just a documentation like aggregator. So like it's like an app you can open and it has the same UI for whatever docs you can download, like Java docs, React docs. So it's all in one place. And I found it helpful. It's worth it. It's like $15 or something, but get in the habit of using that first and you'll figure things out a lot faster.
I'm trying to look up a URL for that to share really quick. Dash keeps on bringing up DoorDash.
I think it's called Dash.
DoorDash has a really good app.
If you need inspiration for an app. No.
It's really well done, their mobile app. But yeah. So we wrap up the AMA then, Brady? And then...
Yeah. Cool. So
that was really fun. Thank you, everybody.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It was really great.
Yeah. So we're gonna hang out now.
Make a list of all the sort of resources we talked about. I'll try to remember.
Sometimes people in the audience compile it.
I know they're so on it. They're watching this chat.
Last week, somebody compiled like a lot of the links and posted it in the Slack.
those are the kind of skills that are
That's
very
the person.
appreciated on the
That's the
job.
person who gets hired.
Yeah.